Is Yeller here? Who's leading this?
He's the I don't know if it's the same
Hi
for everyone.
guys. So
Yeah, there he is.
I messaged both Flurkle and Kiki a little bit ago, but I don't think you got it yet. So Yaler asked if I would lead the meeting and just help guide the conversation. I mean, you guys will both have a lot to say, but if you don't mind, if both of you are cool with with that arrangement, then that's how we'll do it.
Yeah, I have half an hour, and then maybe like 40 minutes starting now. I don't know how long I'm supposed to do here.
Well, as long as you have is great, I think.
Yeah, you can do that. That's great.
We're streaming now, so I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. It's been great to see the progress happening with the projects and to see people moving forward. Swarm City has been kind enough to come and give us the rundown on what they've been doing, how they do it, and I wanted to give people a chance to ask questions and to interact with the team from Swarm City. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat channel on the side, and we will post them up as we kind of walk through this Swarm City philosophy. And don't hesitate to interact and ask questions. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Matt from Swarm City, who is going to tell us all about how they do what they do. Matt?
Well, in part me, mostly it'll be Flurkle and Kiki that are talking about how we do stuff. But so I am Matt from Swarm City. I tend to do communications, and I am here with Kiki, who's our Scrum Master, and Flurkle, who's our architect, King Flurkle, Flurkle for short, Flurky sometimes, and yeah. So we're going to talk about basically. We really think we organize a lot different than most of the folks in the community. Certainly, a lot different than a company would organize. And we think the way we do it has a lot of value and is really appropriate due to the type of technology that we're building. And so we thought we would talk a little bit about that and just sort of try to give you some of the insights as to why we chose to work this way. Flurkle, do you think it'd be good? Do you want to maybe give a little bit of an overview about our philosophy, or are you more comfortable with me continuing about that and giving an overview?
No, please do, Matt. I mean, yeah, you're the communications guy, so I would love you to communicate.
Well, sure. Then just jump in whenever you feel it's appropriate. Same thing with you, Kiki. But I think the main thing is, and I talked about this just a moment ago, when you think about the technology that we're building, like what is the purpose of the technology that we're building? And if you sort of drill it down, it's really promoting voluntary interactions. It's really trying to remove things like coercion or censorship from the equation. And blockchain technology, gives us that censor resistance, and it really makes it so that voluntary interactions cannot be stopped. And some people might think that there's a little bit of there's a lot more freedom in that, right? But some people might say, okay, well, there's a cost to that freedom, and that is that we need to be more responsible for how we interact, right? So we need to be better at interacting in positive ways. But if it's the tech that we're building shows the importance of voluntary interactions, and we all believe that this tech is so important for that, and we know that that's the philosophy around why we're doing it, then wouldn't it also make sense that that's the way that we construct our teams too, in a voluntary way, in a non-coercive way? And so then the question is, so you think about that, first of all, sort of the whys, but then the hows. So how the why is because we philosophically believe this way, but the how is, or the question is, how do we promote these voluntary interactions within our team? How do we actually set up that way? And what does it mean? Well, for us, it means that there's no boss, right? There's no hierarchy. There's no, this person is in charge. This person will tell you that you haven't shown up on time, or you're going to get a raise or you're not going to get a raise. There's no one person at the top of the chain that's going to direct you in a coercive way. And that's totally different than, you know, than any big company or big organization that I can think of. I don't know of any organization out there that works that way, but
the Pirate Party.
But okay, so the Pirate Party is a great example. Maybe tell us what that is.
Oh shit! Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. So the Pirate Party is was started by Rick Valkvinger in Europe. I think in Sweden it started, or in Germany. I'm not quite sure. And it's basically kind of an open source kind of political party where, you know, it's a very anarchistic collective of people who think you can do things differently, and it's like totally self-organized. And Rick wrote a book about it, like how they achieved it. It's called Swarmwise, and that formed like a basis of how we think people can create stuff together, have an impact, but in a way that you don't have a company or an organization, etc.
Yeah. So a company can have no boss, or an organization can have no boss, right? But it can have leaders, and but those leaders aren't appointed. You know, they're not based on who has the most money or you know, or anything like that. It's leadership happens organically based on does someone have a good idea, and can you get other people to follow that idea in a non-coercive way? And that's what happened with the Pirate Party. It did have a leadership group, and their goal was to get people elected to parliament, and they did so with a fraction of the money that their competitors had. I think it was something like 1/10 of the funds that their competitors had. They were able to get some folks elected to parliament. I don't know how European government. I think that it was either there was parliaments in, maybe it was the European Parliament is a thing, and then each country has its own government. I'm not I don't too up with that stuff, but
yeah, the national government was their goal, and that's the most important for the countries in Europe. That's
right.
where we want to have people elected, and they succeeded in that.
Right. But it's important to know that in this circumstance, like, everybody is free to create stuff for the organization that they believe in or they join, but they're also free to go. And so people who are free in your organization, they also get to choose. So if everybody can create in your organization, if everybody has that power, people also have the power to decide whether or not they want to associate with what you create too. So just because you create something in an organization doesn't mean it has value unless other people are willing to join you in that creation or use that creation for something that, you know, that promotes the vision that organization is trying to create. So, and if you think about it, like, it feels a little bit risky at first to organize this way. How do we keep it all together if there's no authority figure, right? But that's like a really important question I think we all have to ask. If we want a more voluntary society, if we want a society with less coercion, then that means that there's less authority, just inherently. So how do we go about keeping it all together? How do we organize effectively and still, you know, you think about Apple, right? And Apple had Steve Jobs, and he's amazing, but he was also a tyrant, right? So how do you keep this all together and moving forward? It's sort of like, how do you still have that Steve Jobs figure, or that leadership, or that passion for the project, but without the coercion? And the answer to that is it's really effective leadership, but it's using a new kind of leadership style that most people aren't used to yet, and that is persuasion and enticement. You want to be able to get people to work with you because they want to work with you, because they believe in your vision, because they love the project as much as you love the project, and they are philosophically aligned with what you're doing. The only reason why Swarm City works, and it is working really well, but the only reason why it works is because a number of us are philosophically aligned. If Flurkle and Kiki and I weren't philosophically aligned, then this wouldn't work. So the leadership comes from people who are willing to, you know, promote that philosophy, and others who are willing to, you know, to engage with that philosophy and feel comfortable with that philosophy and help build. And so for us, I think it's funny that we never. It's for maybe I don't know. Did we even really talk about this in a very explicit way. I mean, we are all sort of believe in voluntary interactions and voluntarism, but we didn't really say that our philosophy is X until a year and a half, 2 years in, right? But we just sort of inherently, and you know, Kiki, Flurkle, tell me if you think differently, but it wasn't until sort of the Neeks Moot thing that we're really explicit about.
Yeah, that's only like from half a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of begins with the philosophy of the project, I think. And even though we weren't explicit about the philosophy of the project, we just all, you know, everybody involved, we just sort of had, we just agreed. I think it was I don't know, we had mind melds and we just agreed. But then we took the time to conceptualize that and put it down. Oh, and here's the thing. We're building that philosophy in tech already. Like if you use Swarm City, it is voluntarism in action. That's what we're trying to create for the world. But we didn't codify that into a very singular message necessarily until, right, like Kiki said, about 6 months ago, which was what. So we decided that our philosophy was something that we like to call Neeks Moot. And Neeks Moot is it's a Dutch phrase, which makes all the sense of the world because most of our devs and a lot of the project comes from Antwerp, comes from Belgium, comes from people with maybe a similar history, not only European history but also a Belgian history. So Neeks Moot became our sort of rallying cry and our philosophy. And what Neeks Moot means, literally in Dutch, is nothing should. Which is, if you think about it, it sort of extrapolates into this belief that there is nothing that I should do, that I'm required to do, that anybody could force me into doing. And it's a very firm rejection of coercion, and it's an affirmation basically that only voluntary actions are acceptable. And we'd already been developing this in the technology, and then we'd already been sort of living this with the team. But now we can really verbalize it. We could say, we reject coercion in life, in our world. We won't coerce others, and we won't allow coercion to affect us, our families, our loved ones. And so therefore, that is a voluntary way, a non-coerced way, that is the only way that we can interact as a team. So that was in us already. We already had that feeling, but now we have the the philosophy, the document, this 2-word philosophy that codifies it, that makes it verbal, that we can say. And it's funny because that phrase does come up, because it's a sort of a whole other language has to take place too when you're interacting in a voluntary way. Oh, you should do this, or oh, you have to. When that comes up, well, Neeks Moot, none should. There's nothing I need to do. But it.
I especially, sorry to interrupt you.
No,
I just want to add a little thing.
Yeah.
I especially like it when people tell other people, you know what you should do, and it's most of the time it's even like a good suggestion or like a helpful comment. But even there, with that, we would respond like, I don't think I should do anything. It's like shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Even if it's a very positive thing, it's like, oh, Matt, you really should start. You should really start exercising again. You're getting a little. I can see you're getting a little pale. Neeks Moot. So anyway, so that's the now we know the philosophy is codified. It's written down. It's being created in the application, in the technology, and it's now it's a part of our team. It's how we want to organize. So how do we then organize this way? How do we entice people to want to work with us in a completely voluntary way, in a non-coercive way? If there's no boss, how do we go about doing that? And then
I just want to make clear that it's, of course, with this philosophy, it is very counterproductive to then say okay, I'm going to pay some devs and they should do exactly what I tell them to do because I'm paying them. So
that's right.
That's what most projects are doing, of course. But how do you do that with this philosophy?
Right, and so that and that leads us into I think how this really, I don't even know how this. See, this is I don't have the institutional knowledge to know how this started. So Flurkle, you'll probably, and Kiki, you'll have to help me. But how did this idea of creating episodes, creating a storyline, making it fun, how did that come about?
Yeah.
Flurkle, you want?
Yeah, I'll start it out, but please do interrupt me when I'm unwinding into, going everywhere. So it was really a hard problem because, like the kind of concept team or like the core team that started this vision, it's really hard to explain. The best way to explain what you want to see in the world is to just build it. But to build it, you need a team of people that are willing to build it, because you can't do that with like 2 people or 3 people. You need so many different skill sets and talents. So at first we try to attract the right people and then make a deal with them or like pay them. But all that stuff is not working if you want to build something like what we are trying to build. So I always knew that like the way people or the South Park, the animated TV series, how that is being developed is a really interesting way to look at how you can do agile code cycles. Because every week they start from scratch and they build they create like a new episode from scratch. The reason why they can do that is because all their software, you could say, and their animations, their characters, etc., it's all components, it's all modular. And so they can just play around with decars and with stuff to come up with like a really interesting story. In the end, it's all just about what kind of story do you want to tell. If you move that from a non-interactive medium like an animated series to an interactive medium, it's the same thing. We want people to experience a certain story. Each time they go into our app, they are actually interacting with other people, and that creates a new story. So we were already writing user stories. I think most developers know what user stories are. It's just like little sentences in which you explain a role, a functionality, and an outcome. For instance, as a communications guy, I can put a card on a project management board so people can see this is a task that needs to be done. And so we just took that idea and just kind of expanded on it. We said like, okay, why there are no emotions, for instance, right, in user stories to start with. So as a developer, if you use the user story as a developer, I want to do this task so I can get money. It's like the most boring thing ever, right? What you want to do is, as a developer, I do this thing because I think it's really funny that people can do it like this, because this is the experience they will have if they do that. So what we did was we wrote out like an entire dev roadmap as a TV season. Like in I think it were 10 episodes at first, but we distilled it to 8 episodes. Where every time we have a little bundle of user stories. So we say, like, for instance, episode 1 is, Frank is this kind of person and he wants to do this and this and this. And we always end the episode with a cliffhanger. Like, will he be able to check his request on this app later on? So also for the developers, it's really fun to always have this cliffhanger. Because we structure it in that way, a very clear vision in a very clear executional path, you see that it becomes like easy for communications people, for community kind of people, support people, developers. So everyone who can add a skill set to this project now has like a clear vision of, oh God, is this the story we're trying to create? Okay, then I can add my little piece to it. And we see that ever since we started working like that, our progress has gone through the roof. We finally have progress. Like a lot of Ethereum projects have issues with progress. So yeah, we see that we attract the right kind of developers who really like to work with that in a creative way and an emotional way. And the fun thing is, every time we deliver something, we can actually play the episode. Everybody can become an actor and play it out. I'm going to shut up now and leave it to Kiki to add a lot of stuff, probably.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to add a lot, but I want to say some things about what Matt and Vilkel have been saying, like because someone said like, yeah, just paying devs and then expecting them to do whatever you like instruct to do. That's not the way we work. It doesn't mean that we don't pay people when they work, but it's just not about like I pay you so you have to do whatever I'm saying. We pay it's just a matter of courtesy, or how do you say it? Like someone puts value in it, and there's value.
Can I add a little thing? I'm not interrupting. I'm just adding a little thing. Also, the way we see payment is more. We want to make sure that devs are like free to be able to give everything they want to give to the project. So in a way, payment in our mind is more a way to make sure they don't have to worry about rent and a car and food for the kids, etc. It's more like freeing you from what you normally have to do to live.
And the important thing is, the way we see it, is that that doesn't mean that we can expect something from someone. So it's just a different mindset to whenever someone does something for you, to be grateful for what has been done, and to always see it as a voluntary thing. In that way, that if a dev says like, okay, I'm doing something else today or whatever, that you cannot say like, but that's not what we agreed. There's no expectations, there's no agreements. They're just like, we do, like the people writing the episodes do their best to kind of make them as attractive as possible, and to make sure that it's clear so a dev will be attracted to do that. But it's all, like that's the way we see it, and not as in I pay you and now you just execute whatever I'm writing down. Another thing I wanted to say about that is like on the whole, like over the whole line of everyone working for Swarm City, we have this idea, like what Matt said, there's no leaders, but of course there's like people that have followers, and like Matt explains. And what goes hand in hand with that way of working is that you have to be willing to let go of a certain role you have. So whoever has the lead in, say, for example, Matt's for communication, we always say, like, if someone else steps up and does a job better and people will follow the other person, that's the way the project will go to. It's the same with we set Nick's mood and the voluntary way of working. But if someone steps up and does it on a very hierarchical way, and it goes very well, and Swarm City goes that direction, that's the way we'll have to go, right? You don't have to fight, or we don't have to cling to a certain vision, or we don't want to cling to a certain position. And that's something that I think that's an important facet of this whole philosophy, or the way we do things, is that you have to say, like, if someone else does it better, or the whole project forks in a different direction, then it's okay. It's not something that you can hold on to. And I think if you make that kind of mindset, that it's not, no one is owner of Swarm City, no one is owner of the philosophy, or can like imply the philosophy on other people. And if you see it that way, it's just changes the way you approach things by making it as attractive as possible, your philosophy, and to make sure that you have followers and people, rallying for the same goal. But if it goes the other way, you have to be able to say, okay, that's the way it goes. So that's what I wanted to add to whatever has been said so far.
Yeah, that's extremely important points, Kiki. That right, it's so leadership, how it happens in Swarm City, is about creating value. So the reason why I love working with King Flurkle is because as architect, I saw him. I saw the way that the interactions were going to work in Swarm City, and it was so brilliant and so inspiring that I have to try to make this project a reality, because I know if we do, we will achieve voluntarism as a community. If people use our product, this is non-coercion in experience, and so I'm compelled. He created so much value. Same thing with everybody else that I work with. Kiki creates so much value. I can't even think about not working with her on this project. And so my entire goal too is to create so much value that that they want to work with me. So I'm not trying to pump my own tires, but I just want to tell you my experience and how I started really being involved in Swarm City. That's
a nice anecdote, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty early on, and I mean the roots actually were a lot closer to me than than this next stage, which I will describe, but we won't get into all that. But in November, December, January of 2016 into January 2017, I was watching and involved and in a certain way, but I wasn't producing anything. Whatever, I was just watching. I was in the Slack groups, and I saw the brilliance, like the complete brilliance of the project. But I also saw that there was a need, that there was there was a little bit of there was some stuff missing from the communication end. And my core competency is I'm good at taking technical information. I'm not the smartest guy with that, but I'm good at saying I'm dumb. I don't understand this, so I'm just going to ask as many damn questions as I need to ask in order to understand it. And then once I'm able to understand it, I can write about it. And I think that I distill it in a way that most people can get what it's all about. So that's like my core competency. So I just said, hey guys, I'd love to, I'd love to start help editing your posts.
No, sorry, I have to interrupt.
You want to? Okay, go ahead.
That's not what you said. You said like your communication sucks.
No.
And if you want to ever make this project a reality, you have to do it like this and like this and like this. And I was like, yeah, why don't you fucking do it then? Something like that. Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to make myself not look like a dick, but the real situation is I was a dick, and I was a little bit. But the thing is, I was so invested. I was so invested in this project that I was really passionate, and that came out.
You were a really good dick.
Yeah. I was okay. Thank you. But for the world, now the world knows. But so I did. I started I started editing things, and Flurkle and I, wrote some things together, and we just sort of earned trust together. And I started producing some videos to show some walkthroughs. And none of this was because I wanted like big compensation or anything. It was just because I believed in the project and I wanted to create value. And by doing that, I think I earned the trust of my cohort, of the people that I work with. It's such so that's the way you sort of onboard in a voluntary way. You go in, you show value, and if people think that you're doing a good job, then they'll use what you make, or they'll try to work with you, or they'll try to take your idea to the next level. And is it harder? It can be, because specifically if there's in the corporate world, it's kind of easy to have a boss. Right? Because you kind of go in to your job, you sit behind your computer, they tell you what to do, you do it, you execute it, you go home. But most people don't like what it's not until they go home that they get to do the things that they really love to do or want to do. I don't know that many people who say my vocation is my passion, so therefore nothing's work to me. Whatever I'm doing is because I want to do it, because I believe in my project. That doesn't work that doesn't happen really in the corporate world. So we're really trying to create a new paradigm, and it's all based on non-coercion.
I wanted to add something. Can I?
Yeah, oh yeah, please talk as much as you want.
I wanted to add that it's not a guarantee that the way we do it is like the most successful way, or even successful in the long run. We don't know. But how I always looked at it is like, it's so rare that you get the opportunity to even try something like this out. Like if you would start a company in the normal world, you probably have to get a bank loan or whatever, and you have to have a whole roadmap, and you have to have a whole plan of your business and how you're going to make money and how you're going to, like there's a lot of expectations to do it the way it's always been done. Like the same thing with hiring people. Everyone kind of copies what someone else does. And I think there's such a huge opportunity here for us, like people that want to try it a total different way, to just have a shot at it, and do not slip. Like if you look at other projects in the space, then what I see this moment is like a lot of people are going back to what they know, like the very common known way of doing business. And I think it's normal. It's a reaction of, okay, that's the way it's been done for so many years. So there's good things about it, there's bad things about it, but at least we kind of know where it goes, so where it leads to. So let's just do it that way. And I think we're kind of the brave ones in the space to say like, nah, fuck it, we're not going to do it the classical way and the way that everyone does it. We're just gonna try things, and that's also the reason why we've been trying to build Swarm City on. We've had different ways of doing it, different way of project management, different way of attracting people, different ways of, we try. That's what we do. Like we try something, we take the things that work, and we throw out the things that don't work, and we change all the time. And for some reason, I mean, a lot of people stick on board, and they still say like, okay, let's try this out. Even all the devs, they say like, okay, let's try a new way, and we're all in this together. Like, okay, how can we change this? This is going good. This is not going good. We've had people going away, people coming back. Anything is possible. And I think it's just, I mean, that's one of the things that's important as well. It's a learning process that kind of never stops. And now we've got the episode way of working, and it feels really nice, and it feels like there's a shroom to it, that also the communication can come from it. So it feels like all these pieces are coming together, but it's only because of trial and error, and to kind of, just say fuck to the classical ways of project management. And now also that.
Well, actually, Kiki, I'm going to ask you a question if you don't mind. This is something that just came, that I just realized. I think it might be actually harder for you. So as Kiki said, we've changed the way we've done things a few times, and it wasn't until since we changed this last time in May or so, that we've really sort of exponentially been able to get the app towards fruition. Like, we're making a lot of really great progress. But Kiki, I sort of kind of see you as like the fulcrum, like the pivot here, because of your role. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so as like you've had to really shift every single time. I'd say more than I've had to shift, or more than the devs had to shift. It's like you've had to shift. Do you know what I mean? So did you feel added pressure every single time that we changed?
No.
You didn't.
Maybe that's just in my nature. I mean, change is always a bit scary, I think, for everyone. But I'm not afraid of doing things new. But that's my personality type. I know from experience that once I start to do things in a routine, like things are coming back, especially after a year. Like if you have 4 seasons in doing things the same way, it gets boring. And I think people are bored anyway with doing some, like it's like, oh, we have to do the taxes again. Oh, we have to, these things you have to do every year. It like in the end they become boring. So for me, it's been nice to change a lot. I think what's most important is to not hold on to systems just because you implied them, or because you feel personally attached to a system. I've introduced a few ways of working, and some of them have failed or have, are changed in the meantime.
Yeah.
I hold on to them. It's not like this was my thing, and I don't get my personal satisfaction from the tools I create and are like dismissed or whatever, or don't work.
Can I add something to that? I want to add something to that if you're okay with that. It's not only don't hang on to the same like procedures and shit. It's also, and especially, never say like, yes, but we created all this value the last 4 months, so we can't throw that away, right? That's like setting yourself up for failure if you put value in the. So something is not working, like you wrote tons of code and it's just not working, you have to be able to just let go of it and say like, fuck that shit, even though it was like months and months of work. You have to be able to let go of it immediately. To me, it's like maybe something that's even harder to do than like change up, because that's about the future, right? But like really leave behind stuff in the past is sometimes harder to accept, I think.
Flurkle. Oh, I'm sorry, Kiki. Go ahead, and I'll ask Flurkle after.
So you can continue, Matt.
Okay. Flurkle, question for you. One of the things that's stayed with me, something that you said that stayed with me for a long time, I think since February actually, when this happened, is you said when you see something fragile, you want to kick it to see if it breaks, or if it has enough. Is strong enough to be able to continue on. Do you think that this way of working is more or less fragile than a hierarchical type of organization?
Oh yeah, that speaks for itself, right?
I think so.
Yeah, of course. Like as soon as you introduce hierarchy, processes, fixed things, everything that's fixed is fragile. I mean, and you're absolutely right. Um, yeah, I mean it's a personal trait, I know, but I like to kick things to see if they're solid or not, right? If I can, if Kiki does that too. If she tests the app, she does such brutal actions that that my face will contort from it. I'll be like, why the fuck are you doing that with the beautiful app we made? But then you see like, oh fuck yeah, there's a bug there, there's a bug there. So if you can't kick it and it doesn't keep standing, it's bullshit in the first place, right? So yeah, I really like people who try to kick stuff. It's a bit of maybe a punk mentality, but at least you will have like an honest and a realistic idea of how fragile something is or how valuable something is. So yeah, of course, it's in everything I do. I always think about anti-fragility. Um, so it's not even about processes. If we write out the TV show episodes, for instance, we don't ask ourselves binary like, okay, are devs now able to develop it, and will it happen like this? We think in probabilities. So we say like, did we increase the probability of this ever happening in the world, or do we increase the probability of changing, our DApp in a certain direction, etc. Yeah, so instead of doing like fixed stuff, you just you increase the chances of this thing actually happening, basically. And I think that's a way to have an anti-fragile approach that hopefully will prove right. Hopefully.
We're gonna find out.
Do we have questions from people? I have to leave in like 10 minutes. I don't know if like, because there's so many participants here. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, I figured that this would be a good place to ask that. If anybody wants to create or ask a question in the text box, or I guess you can just turn your mic on and ask too if you want.
Oh, we'll be so clear. Oh, there's a question.
No, it's so much clarity and it's beautiful. But I wanted to ask a question that is something that I'm kind of dealing with at the moment. You guys gave a great example of how you kind of find people, but my question is, how do you know once you've been working with those people that you have the right people?
You kick him.
Not literally.
Not literally. No, of course not. Like you kick him mentally and ideologically. It's the best example is how Matt and I started working so intensely together, and how we became really, really good friends as well. It's like he kicked the project, right? He said like, your communication sucks. He did it in a more polite way, of course. I'm just making an anecdote of it, but I engaged him like, who do you think you are? Blah 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 blah, and by just being like brutally honest to each other, like very easily, like Matt had the choice, and I think he really made a choice. Like, do I want to engage with this kind of people, or because we really are not friendly to. I mean, it's not that we're like very inviting in the dev team, for instance. We are very kind of brutally honest with each other. If you can't take that, it's a bit like in a top restaurant kitchen. If you can't stand the heat, you should probably get out of it before you get burnt. And some people do get burnt a little bit and then leave the project. And other people love that and are really attracted to that kind of that very honest, open way of working and communicating with each other. But yeah, we don't really do a lot to attract people. We try to talk about our product, of course, and about how we see the world. We never like actively try to get a dev in. The devs that find us and work with us, they come in because they heard from someone. For instance, someone got burnt in a project, and he's like complaining about it, but then someone else at the table will say like, yeah, maybe for you that was a horrible experience, but that sounds like music to me. And then someone like that comes in, and we have a beautiful time together. So it's the same thing, like kick it, basically, like challenge it, like be a little bit a brute, I think.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Just to add to that just a little bit, it's this way of working definitely leads. Okay, I'm not gonna say 100%, but I would say that way more often than not, this type of working leads to more conflict in the beginning, because you have to state what you believe and what your intentions are, and that is a little bit more brutal, and so therefore, there's more conflict. But what that conflict leads to is a better understanding of each person's philosophy, their positions, their ideas. And over time, I think what happens is, or at least what I've experienced so far, is there's less and less and less conflict. So maybe in the beginning, you have a more aggressive type of getting to know you period, which you wouldn't find in a normal corporate environment. It's not that, because you go in and you're told what to do. So there's like no conflict.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I think actually, I think the human and the social side of it, the sociology side of it, it's not that different. I know that officially in a company, I would say there's like a white world and a black world, right? In a company, you still have all the social interactions, which are just like human beings being together. But you're right. On top of that, you have like, what is your skill set? So you will do this task for this remuneration. That's true. But you will see that, if at least if you're working with a lot of people together, right? You will see that this kind of conflict will also arise, but it will be ignored, because it's not, it's not relevant for, and I hate that. I always hated that in like corporate environments. Like, what do you mean it's not relevant? To the company, it's not relevant, but to the people working together, it's really, really relevant, because they might have stress working with someone, or they are scared to come at work for this boss, or but I think we really also, and that's something Kiki and I did a lot also way before when we worked together. I think we became really good at conflict resolution. Almost being happy there's a conflict, right? Saying like, oh yeah, we have a conflict. This is a great opportunity to find out where the conflict lies, so we can learn and grow something beautiful out of that. That is a consensus, right? That where we both actually agree with or love, and then we can move on. So yeah, it's you can be radically honest and brutal and etc. But the responsibility, on the other hand, for all that freedom is that you have to be really careful and good, or take care of the conflict resolution, and really know how to do that. Like, how do you form consensus, not a compromise, but how do you form consensus and come up with a couple of people, instead of being in conflict, just come up with like a way better idea where everybody is so enthusiastic about that you totally forgot what the conflict was about in the first place.
I had another question, but there's some more questions I'd like to get to for the participants. So I'll jump right in there quickly. Did you consider adopting system like Holacracy or any others? Asked by Lansky. Nope.
Well,
no.
I'll start because I'll be very short, and then Matt will do the longer explanation. He's better at it. No, we believe in radical free markets, which is basically anarchism, and I leave it up to Matt to explain more.
Well, that's just the nature of non-coercion. We just believe in non-coercion. We believe in voluntary interactions, and so that really guides our principles. I have looked at it's Holacracy, I think is how you pronounce it, right? I have looked at that before, because I know some major companies. I was in management at a large medical practice in my former life, and so I've looked at such things, and so Zappos uses Holacracy, but and I don't remember everything about it. It seemed definitely like a better option than the normal corporate structure, but for a team our size, and for people who seem to come together with the same base philosophy, we don't really need any structure around it. We don't need to call it anything besides we want to interact with each other in a non-coercive way, I think. There's another question too I see. Could you please say something about the token purpose? Oh, the Swarm City token purpose. Is it only for reputation? No, it's not. That's a separate token. Is there some incentive that bootstraps the network effect? Oh, well, one thing that I could say about the bootstraps and network effect is this is definitely a different topic than the philosophy of how we work, but quickly I would say that our entire goal is, Flurkle says this, I want to make an app that my mom will use. So the reason why we are so meticulous in creating our app, and I think the reason why it's not out yet is because we are paying so close attention to making it so that a user will find it so easy and so beautiful to work with. They won't feel like it's a blockchain application. They'll just feel like it's their favorite application. So we believe that that's what will cause adoption, is that it's so easy to use and a pleasure to use. But we'll find out, right? Our token is a utility token, though. That's what binds us all together. In the Swarm City ecosystem, if you're going to use the marketplaces in the Swarm City ecosystem, you pay with the Swarm City token. So it's our binding factor. And we do use reputation tokens, and those are objective. So when people complete interactions in a marketplace, they earn reputation tokens for a successfully completed interaction.
I'll give maybe
please.
But let's not get into it because it's an Ethereum-wide discussion, right? It's like all of these projects have their own token, and why do they have that? It's a general thing. In our specific case, I can tell you that in the end, there is no end, but it's like, but in the end, what we want to see in the world is a Swarm City community that is like worldwide, where you don't even need the value token anymore, because you will say, for instance, people that are so reputable because they do this and this and this in their hometown, for instance, if they come to my town, I will give them like a badge, etc., etc. So the idea of Swarm City is just like Ethereum, to create to have a way to have people trust each other so much like they would trust their own son or sister, and interact with them in that way in the world. So the long-term goal is that the Swarm City token, the value token, will disappear, and that instead there will be reputation tokens that will arise, that will prove that you basically don't need this value token anymore. But it's not something we want to go into detail with. It's but for more like technical people, they will understand probably what I'm talking about.
Any other questions?
I had one brief one that was kind of touching back on something we were speaking about before. Is there any like warm-up period for you guys when new people come in, where you're preparing them for the kicking that's going to happen? Is there like a conversation or some articles they can read where it's like, hey, this is how it's going to go, be ready for it? Or is it like, get in the deep end of the pool, and if you swim, you're golden?
We have really good aftercare, though.
Good aftercare.
The thing is that there's a lot of, we already wrote a lot of things, like on the Medium and stuff. And you can feel like if someone is interested, they probably will have read a lot of these things. And then, or like on the way, they will read things like that and talk to us and just find out. Because how can you describe it? Like, you cannot say like you will be kicked at a given moment and we're not going to tell you when. That's not how it works, right? It's not literally as if at a certain point people will be mean to you or something as kind of a test or something. That's totally not how it goes. We just notice that you kind of have to stick up for yourself if you want to stand out and you want to, survive is maybe a kind of a bad word, but yeah, you have to just like, come up for your own ideas, even if they're different than ours. And that's what we like. If someone comes and says like, I want it different, or I see things differently, and sometimes it works, and sometimes like, yeah, interesting, or sometimes it's in a way that we all say like, okay, but apparently we're not going to follow your idea or whatever. So yeah, it's very different with every person that comes in. They always have a different path, but the common thing is like just inform yourself and be yourself and be confident and just walk in, and then things probably will work out fine. There's also just don't, if you just don't expect that anybody owes you anything, even their time. It's like if get me up to speed on this thing. It's like, well, okay, I'm doing my own thing. If I find you interesting, maybe, or if you provided some value, then sure.
Can I give a concrete example? I found that or I can do that afterwards.
Do it now.
Do it.
So our two of our devs, Stardust and Lion. So Lion completely changes the way the front end basically works, or not like in user experience, but like how it is built. So Stardust tells Lion in an evening when I was there, okay, can we have like a little meeting where you explain me what you have been doing, how you changed it, so we can get up to speed. And then he will just respond like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Why don't you study up on everything I did, write down your questions, and then ask the questions. And we all are like really good friends, so it's not a fuck you. But actually, if you think about it, like 1 second, if you stand still and not go in the reflex, the reflex of why the fuck doesn't he want to explain that to me? But you think about it, you're like, yeah, of course, this is a way more efficient use of everybody's time. But if you're a person that then thinks like, I think I have the right to get an explanation here, then you probably will not have many friends in Swarm City.
Right. I did want to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, or the other way around. If you feel obliged to give an explanation because someone asks, it's the same. It's a coercion. It's a coercive feeling, like someone asks you a question. It's like with the emailing thing, like when you when you got an email, people feel obliged to reply to it. No, it doesn't work that way. You're not obliged to answer, to give information.
I do think we kind of live by one rule though, right? With we have like one rule in place, right? The 3 pirate rule. Is that? Do you guys feel like we live? Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, please explain briefly the 3 pirate rule.
Well, that totally comes from Swarmwise by Rick Folkving of the Pirate Party, who's amazing. And that is if 3 pirates think that it's a good idea, then you should do it. And it's funny because I think that's how we spend tokens too, right? If 3 people think it's a good idea, get together and spend tokens on something, then we do it. Right.
I love that, and I think it's super brilliant. Are there any closing questions from anyone else before we wrap it up?
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys, Swarm City team, for being here. It's always amazing to hear from you. I love this project, and I love the people that are working on it. And it syncs with the way I look at the world as well. And I hope it's been helpful to you guys, the participants of the Blocktership. I encourage you to reach out, to be in touch with Swarm City. They are really open and wonderful people that make themselves available when they feel like it.
Well, we have, and just so you can get in touch with us if you want, we have community on Riot, or you can tweet to us at Swarm City DAP is a good way to get, or I mean, some of us are in the Blocktership group and stuff on Riot too. So anybody has any questions or wants to reach out or chat, or I'm open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day.